Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those who are new here, my name is Lucy. I am a first-time mum to Riley, and today's video is going to be my pregnancy / labour story. So I've got a drink. I would probably advise getting yourself a drink as well because it's probably going to be a long story. So we are going to get straight to it. So my labour wasn't the labour I was hoping for. I'll be completely honest, I had really hoped for a water birth. I'd hoped for a nice, calm, relaxing room, nice music, candles, diffuser. Bless Matt had gone out and bought these fairy lights which had little frames for your pictures in, so he wanted to get that all ready for the room, a diffuser. So we just wanted to make it really nice, calm, relaxing atmosphere. We'd actually done a hypnobirthing course, which was definitely something I would recommend. It just really teaches about your breathing. What I didn't actually know as well is it actually talks you through the stages of labour, which some may already know, but I was pretty clueless, so that really helped as well. And one of the things that I didn't actually anticipate was actually meeting a really nice group of friends that I like, I call them friends now. I'm the sort of person, I'm quite shy when you first meet me. It can come across quite awkward. I've even had people tell me I can come across quite rude before. I'm really not. I'm quite shy with people when I first get to know them. But once I get to know them, I can sort of warm up a bit and I can be myself a bit more. So the girls that I met at the hypnobirthing group, we speak pretty much every day over our group message. Before we were in isolation, we were meeting up once or twice a week. So I'm really lucky that we are a really nice group of girls that we all get along, and we're a real great support system to each other. So definitely, if you're thinking about doing hypnobirthing, that is one of the benefits of doing it. But yeah, so I would class personally my labour as quite traumatic. Some people may watch this video and think, nah. And I know people have it a lot worse. I'm not taking that away from anyone, but just personally for me, that's how I feel. And as much as it was an amazing experience, and I'm so grateful, at the same time it wasn't a good experience. I feel a lot of people don't necessarily like to talk about their labour stories if it's not a positive experience. And if you did have a positive experience, then amazing. That's really good. But I just feel like it's not something women like to talk about. And personally, I struggled to talk about my labour. Close friends and family know what happened, but quite a few people don't. I just wanted to come on here and just get it out and just let you know how it went, and just open up about it really. So I'm just going to talk about my sort of pregnancy story and just all of that part, and then we'll go over to the juicy side. So Matt and I found out we were expecting on the 12th of March 2019. It was an incredible feeling. After years of wanting to be a mother, majority of my friends had babies, and as much as I was absolutely over the moon for every single one of them, at the same time I also felt, when is it going to be my turn? So when I did the test that morning, I was just absolutely over the moon. Matt couldn't quite believe it, but he was also very happy. It's just a weird feeling to describe really, after doing quite a few tests and it always saying not pregnant, to actually look at the test and see it saying pregnant was just incredible. So we are very lucky. So the week before, I was talking to Matt's sister Siobhan, who I work with. She was my boss, and we sat one lunch, and she had recently found out she was pregnant, and when I say recently, I mean 2 or 3 weeks before that. And we were just having a chat, and she mentioned the date of her last period. And it suddenly dawned on me that was not that far between the date of my last period. I think it was only like a few days in it, possibly a week. And I suddenly thought, well, hang on. that makes me late. And I knew I was late, but my periods weren't massively regular then anyway, so I hadn't really thought much of it. But after talking to her, I thought, well, actually I'm later than I thought I was. So I sort of sat there thinking, oh my God. So I quickly ran out whilst I was on lunch to get a pregnancy test and did the test while I was at work. And it said not pregnant. And I don't know what it was, but something in me thought, I don't know what it was, but just part of me didn't quite believe that. But then I thought, well, it says not pregnant. I thought, no, in my luck, I would probably, my period would start later that day or over the weekend. So I just kind of just put it to the back of my head and thought, let's just forget about it. So Monday came round and still no sign. I went into work and Siobhan sort of said, any luck? I said, no, still no. And that night after work, I went into Boots on the way back to the train station and I bought another test. So the following morning, which as I say was Tuesday the 12th of March, Matt gets up early for work, so I got up with him, went into the bathroom, did the test, and when I looked at it, I just couldn't believe that it said pregnant. And I sort of went, oh my God. And I heard Matt, what? Because I think, obviously he wanted it as much as I did, but I think he almost thought I was kind of, not being a hypochondriac, but sort of making it up in my head, knowing that his sister was also pregnant, almost seemed perfect that I would be as well. So I don't think he quite believed me when I was sort of, you know, thinking it might be the time. So when I did say it, I think he was in absolute shock, as was I. Obviously we were both absolutely over the moon, but it was just shock as well. So I got ready for work and went into work, and just on the train to London, I just sat there thinking of all these amazing things and how lucky we were. So obviously the weeks went by. We didn't tell many people, obviously very close friends and family we told, but we wanted to wait till our 12-week scan just to make sure everything was all right, which thank God it was. So then we announced our pregnancy to the world, and again, that was absolutely incredible. It's one of those things that, I don't know, I'd always couldn't wait to do. And we were very lucky. We had lots of people congratulating us, and it just felt really special. So again, the weeks went by. I was very lucky. The first half of my pregnancy was, I was very lucky. I did get morning sickness, but not a great deal, and it wasn't too bad. And I didn't get it in the mornings, I got it in the evenings, so God knows why they call it morning sickness. But yeah, I felt great, and I loved, I was quite late in showing, but I loved when I got a bump, and I just really liked showing it off. So yeah, I was just really, really happy. Then our 20-week scan came round, and that is when we found out that we were having a boy. And I know a lot of people say it, but genuinely me and Matt were happy either way, whether it was a boy or a girl. But yep, so it was a boy, and we were absolutely over the moon. Whilst we was at the 20-week scan, the sonographer struggled to get all the information he needed. Basically, Riley was and is a very wriggly baby. He was constantly moving around in my tummy. For every scan, the sonographer always had an issue. So they couldn't, I think it was the head measurements or something to do with the brain area, they couldn't get the measurements for. So we was told to go back the following week and see a consultant to just make sure they could get those measurements. And again, didn't think anything of it at the time. We were just really lucky that we found out what we were having. So we went back to see the consultant the following week, and as soon as we went in the room, we just sensed a completely different atmosphere. It was almost like they'd seen something on the scan that they weren't too sure about, which is why they booked us in. I mean, we could be completely wrong with that, but that's just kind of how it felt. You know, the other scans we'd had was all happy and calm in the room, but sort of walking into this, it seemed very serious, and I don't know, it just seemed different. So the sonographer or the consultant was doing the scan, and he was very quiet. And you almost feel like you stop breathing until he said something. And he just said quite quietly, there's a brightening on the bowel, probably nothing to worry about. We'll rescan you in a couple of weeks. Might even been 4 weeks. And sort of obviously being first time parents, we didn't really know what that meant. So he had an assistant in the room. So when the consultant left, we said to the assistant, like, what does this mean? Like, can you explain this to us a bit more? And she just said, basically, it can just be where the baby has ingested blood, and that's how it shows up on the bowel, which is why they scan in another 4 weeks or so, just to make sure that's gone. Otherwise, they'll look into it more. So that kind of calmed us down a little bit. And then after that, I was going back into work. So when I was sat on the train, as you do, you get your phone out and start Googling. And that was probably not the best thing to do. But one of the things that I kept seeing come up to be a reason for that is cystic fibrosis. Obviously, alarm bells start ringing. Matt spoke to his sister, his other sister, who is a midwife, and she also mentioned it can be a sign of cystic fibrosis. So she urged us to get a blood test each to see if we are carriers. Obviously, if that was the case, we would still love our baby exactly the same, you know, nothing would change in that side of things, but you just kind of want everything to be perfect. You want him to be completely healthy and safe and well, and it just, I don't know, it was really, really scary. So the next day we went back to hospital and we had our blood test done, and we were told we'd have to wait 6 weeks for the results. And those 6 weeks were the longest 6 weeks of my life. As I say, I know it wouldn't change anything. We did consider ourselves really lucky that, you know, if that was the case, at least we would be prepared and we could use the time up until he was born to do some research and just, you know, find out a bit more about it, because I don't really think people talk much about it. It's not sort of well known, I don't think. So I know people do have babies and they're not aware of that the whole way through the labour, and then when they have the babies they find out and they're sort of thrown into the deep end. So that's the kind of positive way we looked at it, though. If that is the case, then we would just use that time to really do our research and be prepared. So but nonetheless, we waited those 6 weeks and it was really hard, but thank God, very lucky, we found out that neither myself or Matt are carriers. So that was awesome news, and we just kind of felt like we could, you know, carry on with the pregnancy and just relax a little bit more. So yes, thank God for that. We are very, very lucky. So during the second half of my pregnancy, I started to suffer really badly with what I thought was back pain. So I went to a physio because it had got that bad. It was affecting my sleep at night. I just could not lay in any position to be comfortable. I was struggling to walk. And they actually the physio diagnosed me with SPD, PGP, pelvic girdle pain. I don't know if they're the same thing, similar, but it's to do with your pelvis, basically. And if anyone has gone through that or is going through that at the moment, I really, really feel your pain. It is not nice. You just cannot get comfortable, well, no matter what you do. I was trying to get the train to work every day in London, and you know, sitting on a train for a couple of hours every day was just, it was awful. So I really feel your pain if you're going through that. I had really bad swelling. My feet were about 4 times the size. I look back at pictures of myself when I was pregnant and I honestly do not recognise myself. I was so swollen. So yeah, that really wasn't nice either, but I still consider myself lucky. I still think, you know, I had it okay for being pregnant. I know people get it a lot worse, so I wasn't too bad. So Riley's due date was the 16th of November 2019, and all the way through my pregnancy I was convinced he was going to be early. So I made sure the nursery was ready, all of his clothes were ready, my hospital bag, his hospital bag, everything. I think I drove Matt crazy with wanting to be prepared. I am an organised person, so that's in my blood, but I was just ramped up the level with this. But I would definitely advise not to think that you're going to be early, because when you're not and you are suddenly overdue, it's not nice. You get super fed up. I was, yeah, towards the end I was completely fed up. I finished work when I was 37 weeks, so I was really happy to finish work, and I just used that time just to try and rest, relax, put my fat swollen feet up and yeah, just mentally prepare myself really for it. I was also obviously trying to bring labour on, so I was drinking raspberry leaf tea, pineapple, I was eating extremely hot curries, I was bouncing on the pregnancy balls, just anything I could think of. I had a couple of sweeps and nothing was working, and I was just honestly getting seriously fed up. So Riley was 10 days overdue, and I was actually booked in to be induced, which would be 2 weeks after his due date, which would have been the Thursday. And on the Monday was when things started. So I hadn't slept well the night before, the Sunday night. So I think at about 2 o'clock in the morning, I went into the living room, and just with my pelvis pain, just sitting up on the sofa, just felt much more comfortable. I felt more supported. So most nights I would sort of venture out to the lounge just to try and get some sleep. And I didn't want to wake Matt up with tossing and turning, because he was still working at this point. Working from home, but still obviously having to work. So he would get up and go into the living room at about 8 o'clock for work. So at that point I came back into the bedroom, and I thought maybe just lay in bed with some TV on, and even if I don't sleep, at least I can just chill out in there. Luckily I did get to sleep for a couple of hours, and when I woke up, obviously had messages from some friends just saying, any sign yet? No. Go away. No, I'm joking. It is amazing though, the people that message you, any signs? No. But yeah, so this time it was about 10:30, 11. So I thought I'd get up and get a shower and just, you know, get ready for the day. And as I stood up, I felt my waters break. So sort of pushed my legs together like, oh my God, it's gonna go everywhere. Matt! So I shouted out for Matt to come. I was like, I think my waters are broke. So I managed to kind of waddle to the toilet, and I phoned the maternity unit, and they asked us to go in just to confirm it was the waters. And also, because there's a chance of infection when your waters go, I said, I just want to make sure everything's all right. So we quickly rushed everything, got our hospital bags in the car, shut the front door thinking, wow, this could be, you know, the last time we leave our house without a baby. Next time we come home, we could have our baby. So we went to hospital, and they confirmed it was the waters. No sign of infection, which was good. But because I was not having any contractions, they said I had to go home and go back the next morning to be induced if labour didn't start in the meantime. So it was quite deflating, obviously thinking it was all sort of starting, but it was starting, but obviously no contractions yet. So we went home and just thought we would just get ourselves ready for the next morning. 8 o'clock that night, we were sitting eating dinner, and I started to get tightenings in my tummy. They felt like quite strong period pains, and they were coming and going and coming and going. So I thought this must be contractions, but they weren't painful enough to what I thought it would feel like. So I started timing them just because they were getting quite regular, and they were sort of starting to get me a bit more painful. And they were going all through that night. I didn't get any sleep, but it just wasn't close enough or long enough to warrant calling the hospital. So they actually stopped at about 5 o'clock in the morning. So again, I thought, oh, never mind, another false alarm. So we were due to go into the hospital that morning at 8 o'clock in the morning to start the induction. So went there, we were put into a bed in one of the wards with some other ladies who were going to be induced, and I think it was about 11 o'clock in the morning that I was induced. So I think there's a couple of options. You can either have the gel, which is inserted into your cervix, and I think you are then monitored for 12 hours, I think, or there is also a drip. So they put the drip in you and they are monitoring you for 24 hours. So you are practically bedbound for that. So that wasn't really what I wanted, but the doctor actually suggested that I have the gel, which I was happy with. So as I say, about 11 o'clock that morning, they inserted the gel, and within about half an hour, wow, that was painful. Now, again, I don't know if I'm right in saying this, but I believe when you are induced, I think you do feel contractions like more strongly. I don't know if I'm making that up, but I think that is right. But yeah, wow, they were painful, and there was no gap in between either, so it was just a constant, sort of no time to get my breath back. So that was really, really painful. Now, one of the things I wanted from my labour was no pain relief whatsoever. So I was in that much pain that I was begging Kirsty, Matt's sister, for an epidural. She was saying, do you really want an epidural? And I was like, yes, I want an epidural. So she said they'll have to examine me first just to see how far gone I am before they can do the epidural. So in the meantime, I had a TENS machine on my back. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a machine that they put on your lower back, which is where you feel your contractions, and it's like a pulsating, and it just kind of takes the edge off the pain. But it did work actually for me. I definitely think that helped me get through it. And also the breathing that I'd learned in hypnobirthing, that was definitely a huge part of me being able to get through that pain. I also had some relaxing music playing in my headphones. But at this point I was still on the ward. I was really aware there was other ladies around me. None of them had progressed from what I could hear as far as I had, so I was really aware of trying not to put them off or scare them, no matter how much pain I was in, and it was awful. So with all this going on, Matt had phoned my mum to tell her to come in, so she had just arrived. And I always want my mum when I'm poorly or not feeling very well. So when she got there, it definitely helped perk me up a little bit. But yeah, it was not nice. It was not nice at all. So I was then examined, and this was about 2 or 3 hours after I was induced. And Kirsty had warned me that when you are induced, it can take days. You know, it's not a quick thing, but I think Riley was so ready to come that everything happens from like 0 to 100. So after 2 or 3 hours, I was dilated 5 centimetres, so halfway, which was amazing. As much as I didn't have the experience I wanted to have, one of the positives I do think about is that I'm glad it wasn't a long drawn out process. You know, a few days, I don't think I could have handled that. So it was incredibly painful and it wasn't nice, but I would rather have the short labour that I had, and it rather than that than it be, you know, dragged on for days. So that is a positive I do try and look through. So I was ready to go onto the labour ward into a room, birthing room, but there were no rooms ready. So I was waiting a little bit. Again, I don't know how long that was, to be honest with you. A lot of it is a blur. I don't know if anyone else felt like that, but I just felt like I had this out-of-body experience, and I don't know if it was where I was concentrating on the breathing, but I don't feel like I was there quite a lot of it. But when the room was finally ready, they took me into the room, and I then went on gas and air. Again, I didn't want pain relief, but gas and air was the one thing that I was open to if I needed it, and by God did I need it. And that did really, really help. I think it helped with my breathing. Obviously, where you're taking in and pushing it out, it just really helped with my breathing, and that did calm me down a little bit as well. So after another hour, since my last examination, where I was 5 centimetres, I was examined again and I was fully dilated. So I'd done the last 5 centimetres in an hour, which God knows how. So I was fully dilated, and Kirsty just said to me, just let your body do what it feels like doing. If you need to push, push. And I felt like I needed to push. So she had me laid on my side, and my leg was in the stirrup. and I was pushing for a little bit, and Kirsty noticed that the baby's heart rate was going down. So they have a monitor that all the midwives can see. So where they saw that the heart rate had gone down, a load of midwives and I think doctors came rushing in the room. I kind of wasn't aware so much of that happening, but all of a sudden I was aware that there was a load more people in the room, and people saying to me, telling me that the baby's heart rate had gone down, which made me panic. They were all amazing, they were all so good, and they did reassure me and calm me down. So they turned me onto my back, and the baby's heart rate started going back up again, so that obviously helped. So then they left the room, and I did some more pushing, and then the baby's heart rate went down really quite low. And again, a lot of this is what Matt's told me, because I was not kind of with it. He mentioned that Kirsty had to sort of open a door and shout out, "I need help in here," because the baby's heart rate had gone so low. So next thing I'm aware of is a doctor coming into the room, midwives, paediatrician, and the end of the beds that you have in labour wards come apart. And I'm aware of the doctor ripping this end of the bed out. He didn't even have time to introduce himself. He's getting the forceps out of the pack ready. And Kirsty just said to me, "Lucy, I need you to push with all you've got. We need to get this baby out now." So I just pushed with everything I had. And obviously the doctor had to use the forceps and pulled him out. And the reason for his heart rate going low was that his cord was wrapped around his neck twice. So when he was coming down, when I was pushing, obviously the cord was strangling him. Yeah, so I had my eyes shut where I was pushing, and I all of a sudden felt this warm lump on my chest, and I was just crying like, "Is that him? Is that him?" I think everyone around was crying, and it was him. And it was just the most amazing feeling in the world. And yeah, something that I'll never forget. But the bit that sort of still gets to me and Matt is the doctor's words. So once he was out and he was safe, and they'd examined him and made sure he was okay, the doctor's words were, "I'm really sorry that that was quite a rush to get him out, but if I did not get him out in those exact moments, then we could be looking at a really different ending." That was really hard to hear, but obviously he's fine. He was absolutely fine. It's just hard to know what could have happened. So while the midwives were clearing him up and just doing their checks, I'd had a 2nd-degree tear from the forceps. So the doctor was stitching me up, which was one of those things that I had really worried about happening, but to be honest with you, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So don't worry about that if that's something you are worried about. But yeah, so as I say, a lot of it was a blur. A lot of it Matt has had to tell me and fill me in on, and it's not something I like to try and think about, but I just thought if I, say it out loud, I guess. I've obviously told people close to me, but I just wanted to share my experience with you and just, say if perhaps have an open mind about what you want in your labour, so then if it doesn't happen, then you feel okay with it. The main thing is Riley is completely healthy. He's absolutely fine. We are so lucky, and I really try not to dwell on my experience. So the main thing is that he got out and he's okay. So I had some time in the room. I got a little bit of rest, had some tea and toast, and got up and got showered, and then I went to the post-labour ward. And the reason for this was I wanted to breastfeed, but Riley wasn't latching on, and they won't let you go home until they know that your baby's feeding well. So, and by this time it was about 10 o'clock at night. So they said Matt could stay that night on the ward with me, but he ended up going home in the middle of the night because he just couldn't get comfortable on the chair, and I knew that he needed to get some sleep as much as I did. So he went home, I think at about 3 o'clock in the morning, and then would come back early the next day. And we was in hospital overall for almost 5 days. Start with because of Riley not being able to latch on, and after a couple of days I'd had a lot of help with midwives with breastfeeding, you know, a lot of support, but it just wasn't working. So I did end up formula feeding him, and as soon as he had that first bottle I just felt this weight drop off my shoulders, and I was so happy he was finally getting something to eat. And that moment I knew that breastfeeding wasn't for us, and as much as that was sad because it was something that I really wanted to do, don't put that pressure on yourself. As long as your baby is fed, that is the main thing. So if it doesn't work out, if you don't want to breastfeed, do what is best for you and your baby. So that was all sorted. But the reason we stayed in another couple of days after that was for me. With my sort of checks they were doing every few hours, my blood pressure and my heart rate I think was low. So they did a blood test and they found that I had low iron. So I got woken up in the middle of the night to be told that I was going to be having a blood transfusion in the morning, which absolutely petrified me. I don't think it helped, obviously, lack of sleep and having gone through labour a couple of days before that. So I rung Matt, who was asleep at home, and I just cried down the phone to a voicemail. I'm going to have a blood transfusion. Help me, come back. And as soon as he woke up the next morning and listened to it, he rushed down to the hospital, and I must say he was absolutely amazing. He couldn't have been better. I'm so lucky. You know, he was incredible. So I had the blood transfusion by the next day, which was, by the time I'd had it, I think was the evening, and then they have to monitor you for 24 hours after that. So on Friday the 30th of November we finally got the go-ahead to be discharged, which was amazing, and I just couldn't wait to get home. I was so ready to be at home with us as a family. So when we got told that was excellent news, and I just couldn't wait to get home and just start our journey, which is honestly one of the hardest things. I don't think you realise how hard it's going to be until you do it, and everything is just a blur. It's madness, but at the same time it's the most incredible journey you and your partner will go on, or you will go on, and be grateful for every single day you have with them, because they grow so quick. We are almost 6 months down the line, and I honestly cannot believe where those months have gone. I can't believe how fast he's growing. It is scary. But we just consider ourselves so lucky to have him, and he is such a good baby. So I just wanted to say, obviously, you might not have the experience that you wanted. It may be better than you thought, but every labour is incredible, and it's something that you will never forget. Good reasons and bad reasons. But, and again, I know, you know, people have it 10 times worse than what I had it, but you're not alone. If that has happened to you, you know, definitely talk about it. You need to be open and honest. So if you're still here with me, thank you so much for watching all the way through. I know it's a bit of a long one. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I just want to say a huge thank you to Matt, obviously, Kirsty, who was my incredible midwife, and my mum, obviously my other birthing partner, and of course my dad. Matt's family and my family, and of course our friends. We were so lucky to have so much support around that time. We honestly couldn't have done it without every one of you, so thank you so much. And of course all the midwives and doctors and staff at Southend Hospital. We were so well looked after, so I cannot fault them whatsoever. And that is going to be the end of today's video. Please give it a thumbs up if you have enjoyed watching. And if you are just about to have a baby, then I wish you the best of luck. And I will see you next time. Bye.